Our first love was melatonin. I feel like that was where Lume started, and it's the gold standard marker of the circadian rhythm. Yeah, a lot of people think melatonin is just like a tablet you take, but you produce melatonin in your brain every day. People often call it the darkness hormone because it's released at night and it's actually suppressed by light.
Yeah, but it actually has very little to do with your actual sleep. The tablet melatonin actually doesn't help you sleep at all, but it does help you shift your clock. And mammals that are awake during the night sometimes have reversed melatonin peaks, so they don't peak when they're sleeping. So it's not the sleep hormone, it's the light hormone. It's important to differentiate that. No, it starts increasing at a place called your dim light melatonin onset, which happens only when there's darkness. As Vicki said, it's inhibited by light. And then at a point before bedtime, it starts increasing. And then it hits its peak at about 1 or 2 a.m., depending on the person and depending what time you sleep and wake up.
Because no one liked melatonin. Honestly, I think if melatonin was better understood, we might still be focused on melatonin. I think the reality is that one, it's much lower in concentration, so it's actually harder to measure. So it was more challenging. And then I think the realities of building a startup is you have to meet the customer where they're at, and the education level of melatonin isn't as high as with cortisol right now. So our vision is at Lume, obviously, to build a platform that enables you to measure not only cortisol, but melatonin and estrogen, progesterone, all these other hormones at the same time. But we had to start somewhere.
Another benefit of cortisol is that, yes, it gives us a lot of circadian information, but it also gives us stress information because there's another pathway that releases cortisol, which is your stress response through the HPA axis. So we can both measure your circadian rhythm as well as a stress response. Yeah, there's firstly the timing of that rise is important. Cortisol should rise in the morning, sometimes even before you wake up. It's called your cortisol awakening response. And then there's obviously a lot of other data that we can get through the Apple Watch and other wearables that allow us to differentiate cortisol rise due to activity, as you would with the paddle, for example, or another, physical means.
You know about testosterone in men. What about testosterone in women? That does that fluctuate?
Yeah. Testosterone is a very important hormone for women as well. It's actually been much more spoken about now that we're researching and understanding perimenopause and menopause more.
I'm definitely not an expert in testosterone rhythms in women, but testosterone does exist in women. It's important for women. It's important for adaptation to exercise responses. And yeah, us measuring it, and it is in our pipeline to measure testosterone as well as progesterone and estrogen, because they're all very similar to cortisol. Actually, they're all derived from the same molecule, cholesterol. So they're all very related, and they're all very important, and they all fluctuate with the circadian rhythm, and they all have their own specific utility.
I'm pretty sure it rises in the morning, at least. I've seen the graphs. The other interesting graphs I've seen is how your testosterone rhythm changes depending on whether it's summer or winter. And we're still a lot to discover and a lot to research. And then also how your testosterone levels, your rhythm gets shorter as you age, or, you produce less testosterone as you age. So that's something that a lot of men are very worried about. They're lowering levels of testosterone. So there's rhythms to all of us, and there's daily rhythms, monthly rhythms, yearly rhythms, and then this giant lifetime rhythm of you have an age, you live for a while and you eventually die, like everything does, every biological system,
Welcome to
Sorry
Lume.
to get dark, but
you all die.
We will die. Don't be scared.
Within a day of these hormone fluctuations, there's still a lot to be discovered. So there's a lot of the answers to these questions we don't know exactly. And it's also very unique to the individual. So once we can build up a longitudinal data set for you, we can figure out how estrogen changes your physiology. We know it's related to your temperature, for example, as well as progesterone. And how these fluctuate within a day can give us insight into how you experience that day.
It's super interesting. I think, people want to know these exact answers. And I'm going a bit off topic here, but I think just in general with Lume, what we've uncovered is a lot of health is actually really simple. And there's very simple daily actions that we all know we need to do, like getting our exercise in, eating healthy food, getting outdoors, sleeping and waking at around about the same time. And I think a lot of the explorations we're doing into hormones is trying to find the reasons as to like why they are so important. And something we talk a lot about is like old wives' tales, for example, and like these really long-standing understandings about health, but we still haven't ever really been able to point at like, it's because estrogen rises at this time and that's why you need to go to bed before 12 p.m. and that's why you should eat your, like, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And there's a lot of things that I think we need to still find the reasons behind them, but like Jay said, is like there's not a lot of data on this yet, but we do know there is a lot of answers in the biological rhythms of our health. And that's the whole purpose of Lume, is to help make visible these rhythms so that we can start to find and piece together the answers to things. Well, like the little things like sun salutations. There's like yoga morning exercises, like go say good morning to the sun. Like there's a lot of habits that I think, especially in like Eastern medicine and things, that are really circadian in nature.
Yeah, a lot of Eastern medicine is based on like a 24-hour rhythm, or the rhythms of your body. And like Vicki was saying, there's a lot of wisdom in these traditions that there was never proof. And we're at the point now where we're developing the tools to prove out the reasons. Let's not dismiss these traditions that are based in wisdom and there's value in them just because there's no current proof. Vicki and I and the rest of the team, are all working on creating proof to show that it's actually beneficial to do your sun salutations. Suprachiasmatic nucleus is where the central clock sits, and that speaks to the pineal gland, which secretes melatonin. We have these intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells that sit at the back of your retina. I'm sure you've heard of rods and cones. Those are your also photoreceptive cells, but these have a very specific function. They only detect the absence or presence of light, so they don't like input into visual sensors. They just say it's night or it's day. And that goes to the central chiasmatic nucleus, where your central clock sits. And from there, that feeds off to several thousand, probably, peripheral clocks, including the pineal gland that secretes melatonin, but also the adrenal gland that secretes cortisol, and so on. So that is the center of your body's rhythm.
Some of our first conversations with researchers at Oxford, they would tell us about these people that are like technically blind. Like they don't have any image forming things, so they can't see anything, but they still have those IPRGCs. And so their body can still keep time with the sun. I think something else that I've found really interesting, as someone from Australia that grew up in this sort of, going to the beach and swimming in the ocean and sunbathing and things like this, which a lot of people kind of demonize. But what's been really interesting more recently is people seeing the benefits of like sauna and UVB wavelengths. Yeah, there's some like research that's coming out that like actually some of these wavelengths are really important, and like red light therapies, like people are having these things going on their faces to get specific wavelengths, and we're trying to like biohack these like wavelengths of light, and we're really starting to see light as a medicine in a way. Like you eat food, but you also ingest light through your skin, through your eyes, and all of these processes are actually like way more complex than we could have imagined. I think like what I've been finding interesting is seeing like this like this sauna and cold plunge movement that's coming about, and realizing like, oh, I guess that's what we did growing up when we'd like go and jump in the ocean and then lay in the sun, and like that was something that felt really nice and you couldn't really explain why, but it was just really good. And I think that's something to not be ignored as well. Like things that feel good probably are good for you, When you go outside on a sunny morning and you feel that endorphin rush, that's probably a good thing happening in your body.